All right, it's 9 o'clock, at least in the Pacific Coast in California. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GitLab monthly release kickoff call. I'm the Vice President of Product Management at GitLab. This is my first time hosting this call, and I look forward to feedback. Recall that 13.0 major release is planned to ship this month on the 22nd. This call is not about 13.0. It is instead about 13.1. A release plan for June of this year. This is our first minor release on 13.0. This 13.1 release is packed with functionality across all stages of the DevOps to help you increase operational effectiveness, deliver better products faster, and reduce security and compliance risk. We'll cover the updates in 4 sections of Dev, Ops, Enablement, and Secure and Defend. And today we have 4 of our product leaders that will talk about what we are doing in each of these sections. We'll start off with enablement section covered by Josh, followed by Dev, covered by Eric, Ops by Kenny, and finally Secure and Defend by David. I'd like to remind you of a couple of things. First, we have a kickoff page on the GitLab website, about.gitlab.com/direction/kickoff, if you'd like to follow along or use it as a reference later. You'll find links to issues of all the planned functionality there. You're all invited to jump into these and provide inputs and feedback. We welcome all your contribution. Secondly, keep in mind that we do plan ambitiously, and some of the things we talk about here may not make it into 13.1, although we do intend and try hard to ship them. Please recognize that our plans are therefore dynamic and subject to change. With that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Josh. Take it away.
Thanks, Sadu. We're working on 3 major buckets of things for this release in enablement. The first is that we are switching away from delivering some really big projects like the minimum version of Postgres required, namely PG11 and 13.0, as well as also delivering Puma as the default application server. So we're transitioning from those, which we've been working on for quite some time, onto new projects, as well as we're also focusing on continued improvements to GitLab performance and scalability, as well as also simplifying operations of GitLab for both ourselves and our customers. So jumping into the new projects, during the course of the PG11 upgrade, we identified some improvements which we didn't have time for in the PG11 upgrade that we would like to improve on for PG12, the next one. So you can see a number of them here, which are focused on, which will help make this process easier for our users going forward. This is important because we want to make sure PG12 is the next minimum version required next year, next May. And so we want to get the startup process pretty quickly here with 13.3 and PG12, so people have time to upgrade and roll over and test it leading up to that kind of May new minimum requirements to ensure we stay on the cadence of PG as well itself. So this is really important to help make sure that process goes smoothly. Also required is we need to switch over to Patroni. Currently, Rep Manager or our version of Rep Manager does not support PG12. And so if you're trying to use the packaged version of Postgres across multiple nodes that we provide today, that won't work there. And so we want to go ahead and add support for Patroni. This way we'll support PG12, but we'll also align with how GitLab.com currently runs its Postgres services as well. And so we always want to make sure .com is just as reflective as possible of our customers. And so we'll go ahead and get this done. It's largely finished already. We have a couple things we're wrapping up here, but again, it works, and we're just driving to delivery of this here in 13.1, or if not, shortly thereafter here in 13.2 to prepare the way for 13.3 with PG12. So that's some of the improvements we're taking to continue on the Postgres iteration strategy. We're also working on ways to improve how we store and protect omnibus configuration secrets. Right now, they are stored in some configuration files, gitlab.yaml, gitlab.rb, a couple others. And we have heard from folks that they want those out of those configuration files and into a different storage solution that is more protected. So we're working on that here, and we're going through a couple different proof of concepts to test these out. Number one for security, but number 2 also for the user experience impact, because it will be a bit different than simply putting them in that configuration file. But we're excited about this and the improved security it will offer our customers. So that's some of the new projects we have going on here in this release. And now we can transition to the performance improvement section. First off, on the database side, partitioning is one I've been working on for some time here. And we're going ahead and trying to iterate on a proof of concept for the audit events table. This is a good, relatively simple table right now that we can kind of use as a test case and establish some best practices and test out some different options. The first thing we want to go through and do is confirm what the partitioning key should be. And then from there, start to actually deliver that, hopefully in a proof of concept, this milestone as well here. We're mainly evaluating between the timestamp and the namespace identifier right now, and they both offer different competing sort of benefits and cons as well. So we're going through and working that out. Next up, we also want to improve some of our worst performing endpoints. In particular, two of them. One is the project controller, which right now takes between 1.5 to 3 seconds to actually return. This is quite a long time, and we want to bring this down to under 500 milliseconds. This is a pretty popular workflow, and so this has have a pretty high impact to our users by being able to make this 2 or 3 times more performant. So we're excited about this and working on this with the memory team. Similarly, the blame controller and the blame API are also quite slow. In this case, significantly so under certain conditions. As you can see here, it takes over 17 seconds to return. So we want to go ahead and we want to make this significantly faster to help make sure these pages respond in a time frame our users might expect, because currently they might think it's potentially broken. So we're looking forward to that here and the blame API as well. Next up, we also want to have a better understanding of how our users and our self-managed installations actually run. To date, we've been using GitLab.com as a proxy for a lot of the pain points and performance challenges of GitLab itself. And but that might not necessarily be exactly what our end users are seeing. They have different configurations, different load patterns. And so if we can get some better telemetry and some better knowledge of kind of what our customers are seeing out there in the field, we can include that in our prioritization here and make sure we address those concerns, which you might not be seeing as potentially impactful on GitLab.com. And so we're working to try and get some of those things in the usage ping, kind of the operational data to help make better decisions going forward. And so that's some of the performance aspects we're working on here in this release. And we can move over to these simplification of things. The first is that we've been working on the self-service framework for Geo as we go through and add additional data types support for Geo itself. The idea here is that we can reduce the time it takes to add a new data type to the replication framework, and with the goal being that ultimately when a team of GitLab implements a new data type itself, they themselves have a really quick and easy path to simply add the replication to it from the beginning. And so this way you can have improved Geo support and a faster time to support it for all the new features we roll out across Geo. And that'll save us all a lot of time here going forward. And again, help increase the speed of catching up to all those data types. We have most of them today, but not all of them. And you can see that list on our website. So excited about that for a number of reasons. But we're also working on improving the scalability by simplifying the backfill operations. Right now we rely upon foreign data wrappers a lot. And this adds a lot of complexity to Geo. And we want to try and get rid of this and simplify its development, again, to make it easier for us to build and also operate and maintain here going forward. And also on the user experience side of things, we want to go ahead and make sure that promoting a secondary should be as simple as possible. And there's a number of checks that we kind of ask you to go through during the process. We want to go through and actually automate as many of these as you possibly can. And so the process of promoting a secondary to a primary, which could potentially be in a relatively stressful situation, is as easily and with as much little as risk as possible. And so we're going to go through and make that process simple. And next up and last up here is the search team. And we want to go through and continue to refine how we build our indexes. We had some significant reductions in the index size in a previous release of around 40%. And with this change, we think we can get another 30% reduction in index size as well by changing how we currently index the words by going to an edge n-gram filter. This does have some impact on how search terms will match. Right now we match partial words. So if we type in the first couple of letters of a word, we'll match the rest of them. This might be unexpected actually, but you can see here our competitors currently don't support partial matching. And so we're aligning to them, but we'll also be able to recognize some significant benefits to reduce cost and reduce index size on the Elasticsearch side of things. And so our current proposal is to users can have an asterisk here if they still want to retain that same behavior, But for now, we'll also potentially reduce the number of potentially confusing results as you might not get the exact term you're looking for back in your search results. So with that, I'll pass it back to Anoop, and it wraps up our enablement section here for 13.1. I think you're on mute, Anoop.
Thanks for that update on the enablement section, Josh. Over to you, Eric, for dev.
All right. Thanks, Anoop. My name is Eric Brinkman. I'm the Director of Product Management for the dev section. The dev section is comprised of the first 3 stages of the DevOps lifecycle, which is manage, plan, and create. And I normally walk through our features in order of those stages, but today I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is kind of align all of our stages together into 3 themes. And the 3 themes are enterprise readiness, iteration on improving the user experience, and some tier moves, which is always exciting and fun to announce. So let's go ahead and dive into enterprise readiness, which is really our theme around making the enterprise experience better for GitLab.com, as well as giving the right controls and auditability for all users, whether they're on .com or self-managed. So the first thing I want to highlight is a feature to prevent forking outside of a private group. So this will be a feature that will allow group owners to toggle whether or not forks can be created outside of the group. This will help with protecting, very sensitive IP or just private projects that you don't want forked outside of any group other than the one that it lives in. The second one, I've talked about this one before, but it's really important to highlight again, which is optionally disabling group membership inheritance. This is one I talked about last release, but it's going to land in 13.1. But this is important because if you're a member of a top level group, you automatically are a member of every subgroup in that group. But for GitLab.com, we know most organizations manage their entire company at a single top level group. So by allowing group owners to optionally disable group membership inheritance, this allows them to structure their organizations as they need to, or at least have the option to structure them as they need to on GitLab.com. So a nice improvement here that will really help enterprise readiness on GitLab.com. The second kind of big theme within enterprise readiness is obviously compliance and auditability. We're going to iterate on a compliance feature that we released 2 releases ago, which is these compliance framework tags we are allowing our users to put on projects. And we're going to use these tags by allowing admins to scope merge request approval settings to projects that have these compliance tags. Right now, you can set this at the instance level, but we want to provide a little bit more configurability so that only these rules get set for those projects where they really need to be set. So a nice way to use these tags that we released, and we'll continue iterating here as well. As always, we're continuing to bolster our audit log, and in 13.1, we're going to include changes to approval groups. So if someone is added or removed from an MR approval group, this will now be surfaced in our audit log. And to help our user understand who has permissions to specific groups and projects, we're also adding an API endpoint to help surface all of the permissions of users for all groups and projects. This is something that we've heard pretty consistently in our customer advisory board meetings and from users, that they just need a better way to audit who has access to what side of GitLab, so we're excited to add this. I'm going to talk about an analytics feature very quickly, and the reason this is in the enterprise readiness theme is because we have a great feature called value stream analytics, but it lives at the group level. And because it lives at the group level, if you have a large group, such as we do here at GitLab, all your data is aggregated, and it can be difficult to glean insights from this feature. So we're going to add filtering to this feature, so you can filter via label or other keyword, and this should really help individual teams that are all inside of a single group really get better insights from the value stream analytics feature. So really excited for filtering, and I think this will really enhance the functionality and the usability of this feature as well. In GitLab 12.10, we released our MVC of requirements management, and our next step here is to be able to trace those requirements to tests. And so excited to see Mark and the team iterate here and see where we can go with requirements management. And then our last enterprise readiness feature, of course, is Gitterly Cluster. Gitterly Cluster is what we've recently renamed Gitterly High Availability, and we'll be working towards strong consistency. In 13.0, which is in 4 days, we're going to release the first general availability release of Gitterly Cluster, but it comes with an eventual consistency model, which means that there's potential data loss in the case where a Gitterly node goes down before data is replicated to it. We know that that's a great first step, but it's not where we need to be long-term. And so we're going to be iterating towards Gitly cluster strong consistency via 3-phase commit. And our first step here is introducing some new Git hooks to make this a possibility. Our next theme, iterations improving the user experience. I'm going to highlight a few things that seem super minor, but I think are really going to help the experience here. The first one is making it easier to remove labels from issues. If you use labels a lot in issues or MRs, you know that it takes several clicks and likely some typing to remove a label. This should be a lot simpler, and we're going to do that hopefully with one click to remove a label from an issue or MR. The next UX experience or improvement that we want to do is by sticking issue titles. If you have a long issue, you can see as I scroll down, you lose any sort of context at the top of this issue. But a common workflow is to deep link someone to an issue comment, which you can do by clicking on the timestamp, getting the unique URL here, and then sending this over to whoever you need to send this to. Basically, their experience looks like what my screen is sharing right now. You don't have any context into the issue, but by simply sticking the issue title, you'll be able to see this at any point in the issue, which will really help to provide that context when you get deep linked into a longer issue. We're going to continue to iterate on boards and start working on a long requested feature, which is providing epic swim lanes into boards. So really excited to see this one finally activated upon and to see this one land. If you'd like, there's a ton of designs down in the bottom of this issue that highlight all the various states. So would love your feedback if you want to take a look at those. We're also going to allow comment pins on designs to be resolvable. So today you can comment on a design and it'll show a little pin on that design. But the problem is if you address the feedback, the pin doesn't necessarily go away. So we want this to be resolvable so that this pin goes away, especially in the case where a new design has been uploaded and that comment has been taken care of. In 13.0, we're releasing version snippets, and our next iteration here is snippets with multiple files. Here's a sneak peek of what this might look like. We're gonna allow up to 10 files in a single snippet, which will be really great functionality and a great enhancement for snippets. And then lastly, for iterations, we are going to allow inserting an image using the static site editor. In 13.0, we added what you see is what you get functionality, and in 13.1, will allow you to insert an image. And over to my last theme, which is tier moves. I have two exciting announcements for you all today. The first one is that we're going to move group level IP address restrictions down to premium. Currently, this is an ultimate feature, and we think this really aligns better with the director level. And so we're going to move this down to premium per our buyer tier framework, and really excited to offer this value to our premium customers. And our second tier announcement is that we are going to move merge request reviews down to core. We think that reviewing merge requests is something that an individual contributor would do on their own work. And this functionality is really about batch comments. We're excited to bring this down to core as it aligns really to the individual contributor on our buyer framework. That's a quick highlight of all the things coming in dev. Of course, there's a ton more things. Please view the kickoff page and the videos, and would love your feedback and your comments. I appreciate you all, and back to you, Anoop.
Thanks for that quick run through, Eric. Over to Kenny for ops.
Yeah, thanks, Anoop. My name is Kenny Johnston. I'm the Senior Director covering the ops section. The ops section comprises verify, package, release, configure, and monitor stages. It's 9 total teams. I'm gonna quickly highlight a number of items through this journey and really focus on one specific stage that I think is doing really amazing work that I wanted to call out here. The way that I'd like to walk through this is to think about the user adoption journey. And we know from the experience of our users that their adoption of our single application goes through different phases. And the phases that I'd really like to focus on are the adoption of Verify, our CI tool, as existing source control users. And then lastly, the adoption of Monitor. I'm going to really highlight those specific two. In CI, we are working on doing public testing for a Jenkins wrapper. This is an important tool for organizations moving from Jenkins to GitLab to enable them to kind of quickly subvert some of the reconfiguration they might have to do of their Jenkins pipeline definitions and have that Jenkins pipeline run natively in GitLab. We're looking for public beta testers here. This issue is linked to in the kickoff page. Feel free to jump in and contribute and utilize this new functionality we're working That is really important to this broader migrating to Jenkins process, which we've also continued to build better and improved documentation for, including a new video about how to migrate from Jenkins. So feel free to continue to watch this documentation for new and improved updates in the migration experience. Also in the CI world, we are adding the ability to better manage runners in your GitLab groups. Runners are the kind of workhorse of a GitLab CI. It's really important that you and the administrators of your CI system have the ability to manage the runners at a singular group level so that they can ensure that the proper runners are available to development teams when they need them. We're also adding in the CI group a new capability to more easily create a kind of matrix of CI jobs by defining that in your CI YAML. So the kind of canonical example is doing different build jobs across many different stacks. You can do that really quickly in a CI YAML instead of having to create a bunch of kind of static pipeline definitions. We generate those dynamically in this matrix format. The next I wanted to highlight really quickly in that adoption journey, many of our users after adopting CI then focus on adopting our great package functionality. Today, that package functionality includes an ever-expanding number of package types or languages. And in 13.1, we'll be adding support for PHP Composer, as well as adding improvements to our recently released NuGet repositories and improving the experience for setting expiration of your packages and artifacts. In our release stage, we're also adding a really cool feature that integrates both release and monitor, where when you're doing a incremental rollout, you could see the error rate from your that might have happened as a result of your rollout and why we might have rolled that back. We would automatically roll back if an error rate hit a threshold. Now, right here in this deploy board, you could see that error rate and understand why a rollback was happening. We're also adding in the configure stage improvements to how you can manage Kubernetes clusters. Those include an overview of the clusters themselves that includes node count and CPU allocated and used. So you can get a quick view of the different clusters that you might be using to enable your developers to deploy quickly, to deploy their container-based applications quickly, all in one view to get a sense of how much you're utilizing. We're also continuing to iterate on our improvements for an integrated Terraform experience by adding improved authorization and the ability to support multiple Terraform state files within a Git repository more easily. I wanted to specifically highlight our work in the monitor stage. So in 4 days, we'll be announcing 13.0, and that will include our minimal MVC for alert management. We're going to continue to build on that MVC, adding alert identification, which allows you to do alert deduplication, adding the ability to set the status of those alerts. So you can say whether they're being triaged, they are acknowledged, or have been resolved, as well as filtering those new assignment statuses in your alert view. This is all in service of adding the ability to point your existing alerts to GitLab, have them be duplicated and have your ops team interact with them there, create incidents in a kind of typical GitLab collaborative fashion similar to issues, and allow your dev and ops teams to much more closely collaborate as they go through the triage and resolution and then improvement phase with incidents. As part of that same experience, we're also adding a bunch of improvements to our metrics dashboard, including improved tooltip interaction, as well as the ability to set ranges for single chart stats, allowing users to switch between UTC and their local server time when viewing charts. This is especially useful for teams collaborating across time zones. Adding the ability to connect individual charts to other charts so you can drill down and keep your context when you're firefighting an issue, as well as have a kind of linkage between dashboards themselves. So if there's a common dashboard that you might have a starting point for your triage process, it can link out to well-known and kind of established patterns for other dashboards that will help you triage. Those are all, again, in service of GitLab becoming a singular collaboration point for your dev and ops teams. I would encourage any team that is pointing their alerts to a separate system to consider pointing them to GitLab so that they can enable this kind of collaboration between their two teams. So again, that was a review of us thinking about our upcoming features from the perspective of our users adopting GitLab with a primary focus on moving from create to verify, as well as if you're using GitLab's planned tools, using GitLab monitor tools for incident management. With that, I will hand it back to you, Anoop. Thanks.
Thank you, Kenny. Bring us home, David, with Secure and Defend.
Oh, David, I think you're on mute.
Kenny, I guess Zoom is not as responsive when you hit unmute as it used to be. So my name is David DeSanto. I'm Director of Product for the Secure and Defend section. I'm going to walk through the different groups related to our security offerings, and we'll first start off with static analysis. This team's working on two very exciting things. Our theme for this release and next couple is focused on application security testing leadership. And with that, they're working on adding SaaS configuration into the UI. So we're starting off with our UX discovery first, but to kind of give you a sense of what that would look like. Within the UI, today you can just see whether SaaS is configured or not on the configuration page. That will be expandable and will bring you down into all UI-driven configuration. And that'll have very specific configuration for each of the scanner types as needed. And this is helping us allow people to adopt security easier. We do a very good job with our GitLab CI YAML file today, but we are having a lot of customers who run into issues, understanding what to put where and what the configuration file should look like. And this will auto-create that for you based off your input. The last item they're working on is the beginning of us meeting our open source stewardship and bringing SaaS to core. We're first offering Brakeman, which is a Rails-based scanner, down to core, and that'll be available in 13.1. So the dynamic analysis team, they're focused on a lot of items to improve the user experience as well as reduce false positives. An example of that is beginning to offer scan profiles. What this will allow you to do is define the configuration based off your application, and will then remove the erroneous findings of false positives that relate to a scan occurring on an endpoint and it finding something that may not be directly related to your architecture. The second part of focus is on allowing DAS to run on demand. And this is allowing us to then extend our security features, not for being just for developers, but for being developers and security teams. Kind of give you a sense of what that will look like. You'll be able to see an asynchronous scans option off the security and compliance. You'll be able to set the information for the scan. The scan will show up as running within your pipeline view, but you'll see here in the comments, it says there's no commit that was related to the scan. And then the results will be on the pipeline security report. And you'll notice highlighted here, there's no filter. That's because you're only seeing DAST results, so there's no need to drill in the results that aren't there. So this is a nice big step forward, working cross-collaboratively with Kenny's section to be able to begin to offer scans outside of a commit. The final group for secure is composition analysis. Again, focusing on application security testing leadership. We're exposing the license check approval within the license compliance section of the UI. So you'll see here in this mockup, there's a license check option. From there, you'll be given the window to identify how many approvals are needed and who the approvers are for that project. And then from there, that will get saved in as your policy. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about Defend. The first group is Threat Insights. They've been working very hard over the last many milestones to bring our standalone vulnerabilities into the UI. That launched with, we'll be launching with 13.0 here next week. But with that, we'll be able to do things such as persistent filters on the dashboards. Kind of give you a sense of what that looks like. This is the dashboard today. If I come in here and say I want to filter by high, and then I decide to come in and look at a specific finding, if I go back to the dashboard, that filter is now lost. And because the data is now persistent, we're able to then also make the filters persistent as well. And the final group for Defend is container security. They're focusing very much driving adoption of the features they're responsible for. The main item I want to highlight for you is security policies and being able to view them in the UI. And that'll look kind of like this. So off the threat monitoring tab, where you can see the overview of the traffic and what's being mitigated, there'll now be a policies option where you can see which policy you've rolled out. They're also beginning to make it available for you to add and remove policies. I don't have time to go through all of that today because I'm actually at my time, but I'll hand that back to Anoop. What I'll say is if you have any interest in this, please don't hesitate to ping the team on the issues, as well as collaborate with them on any additional items you'd like to see happen. And with that, I'll hand it back to Anoop.
Thank you, David. That is an amazing set of capabilities slated for 13.1. And I can't wait for these to be in the hands for users so they derive value and also give us feedback as we continue to iterate further. Thank you for spending the time with us, and we'll see you next month. Bye.